What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we are back with a brand new tier list video, and of course we're going to maintain that same format that I had at the start of the month, where we're just going to scrap like the whole tier 1, etc. We're just going to go top 20. There's so many legends in this goddamn game, and consistently trying to keep them in ranks with each other, comparing everyone to everyone, it's very difficult to do so. I feel like just doing it in the top 20 format is just a cleaner way to do it. And look, just because a character doesn't make it to the top 20 doesn't automatically mean the character is bad by any stretch. It's just we're looking at the top echelon here. And to be honest, at least in the first half of this list, you could probably maneuver a lot of characters into at least between the 11 and 20 marker. When it gets to closer to the top 10, I feel like it's pretty clear cut in terms of who are the best of the best. But the second half of this list, it really comes down to the content that comes out at the time, right? So we're gonna start things off, and we'll go through the 16 to 20 first. The first character on the list is going to be the exact same character that had in the 20th position last month, which was going to be Momonosuke. Momo, I still think this character is very good. I mean, we talked about him last month, as I said. He's very, very good as a as a beginner player. The fact that he has an EXP boosting captain, he boosts Free Spirit and Slasher, which is obviously a massive positive because those are very, very good classes. And then Removal of Bind, obviously very good, great special with utility. He's just a good unit, and if you're going up against co-op quests and stuff, actually really good for that too. So I feel like it makes sense to have Momo still in the top 20 list, because even if you're not a beginner player, he does still see some play. I mean, if you're playing co-op quest, as I said, he's a mainstay in a lot of those teams because of his utility and the attack boost for multiple turns. I guess I forgot to mention as well, in terms of the new units that we have for this list this month, we had Karasu and Morley, who came out with the treasure map. We had Donsai and Leo, who came out with the Kizuna. Super Evolution of Kuma. We had the brand new batch now at the end of the month with Usopp Lilith and Nami Sanji. And I don't think it's much of a surprise. None of these characters are making it onto this top 20 list. They're just really not good enough. It is what it is. Moving on, though, to our number 19. So number 19 on this list is going to be a Super Sugofest character that is pretty old by this standard. I'm just trying to find them because I literally cannot freaking see them. Here they are. Roger and Whitebeard. I believe they were also around this same marker last month. Whitebeard and Roger, there's just a good character you can put on a lot of different teams, mainly because of their switchability. Being able to generate adjacent slots matching, a 2x attack and orb boost, full border slots, and then the special ability that can remove a ton of despair, and also strike a slasher. So good class combo there. Roger and Whitebeard get access to pretty decent supports as well, so there's lots of really good use cases for this guy. The special ability itself, aside from the despair removal, is pretty bad these days, because being able to buff an attack or an orb boost to a 3x multiplier, and then either buff affinity or give you a 2x affinity boost, the numbers are just too weak. I really can't wait for the day when this guy gets a super evo, because he desperately needs one, I think, at this point. But he's still usable, which is kind of crazy to say. So Roger Whitebeard is going to be there. Next, I don't know if this is controversial or not. The next two characters I think are a little controversial, because they are characters that came out during New Year's. The next one is going to be Whitebeard and Ace. This character dropped down a fair bit in my list. I just haven't really found too many use cases for them. They are a little niche in the way that they're kind of built, obviously, because you really want to run them in a really weird scenario, whether you run these Whitebeard Pirate Commanders, or, you just use them as a sub on a team to remove attack down. They provide an attack boost, which is good, but the condition to, buff that attack boost is a little bit of a weird one, honestly. So this is a really hard character to rank. I'm not the biggest fan of this character. When he first came out and testing him out and stuff, he was really fun, but I feel like in modern content, I just don't see much of a use for this guy until if we get better versions of these units, this guy will be phenomenal and be a top tier threat. Until we get better updated versions of these Whitebeard Pirate Commanders, I just don't think this character is going to be good. I mean, another thing as well, when they release new versions of these units, they also have to be either Powerhouse or Fighter, and then it will be good. Until that point, I'm not that excited about this unit, you know what I mean? But you have to respect what the character does, because the character is pretty good and is unique in some fashions. But at the same time, I was really expecting a lot more from this guy. So it feels really sad to put him that low, but, it is what it is. And then I think this is probably the biggest surprise, because after kind of determining where I wanted to place certain units, surprisingly, I'm going to put Sabo on the list straight after them. Now, we talked about it extensively at the start of the month in terms of like what Sabo was doing. The thing is Sabo, he just didn't seem like he did a lot, but when you really boil it down, the big thing that Sabo has is the utility components. The utility components that he has are very common debuffs that you'll be inflicted with, being able to resist the Despair by 10 turns, and then the special ability that can remove the special bind and burn duration. All three of those debuffs are extremely common in modern release content, and the fact that he as a captain can deal with special bind as well, which is really good, and his EX super relatively easy to activate, and a full board of tandem slots that goes through block, as well as providing an orb boost that can overwrite, increasing the effects of base attack is kind of whatever, but it's there. And he's just kind of unique in all that. You know, the super tandem mechanic is trash. He's really good in Rumble, but this video isn't particularly going to be focusing on Rumble. But honestly, Sabo has kind of surprised me this month, and I feel pretty comfortable leaving him in this list, at least right now. And the fact that he buffs, you know, Int, Fighter, and Cerebral, you've got a pretty good array of characters you can use with him. The only real downside is, you know, that special, because while it does have the utility stuff, the rest of the stuff is kind of bad, because it is dependent on having certain buffs on your crew, the tap timing bonus damage, which is very, very rare. And then the advantageous class effect ability, which is very, very good, but, you know, the enemy has to have weakness class for Fighters or Cerebral in order for this special to actually be valid. And we saw in this latest PKA that just came out, the latest PKA doesn't have weakness class at all, which means Sabo Special doesn't really give you much, but it's the utility components, which is why I'm keeping him in this list at the moment. I'm not expecting him to stay in this list forever. I don't think he will, but, you know, if they keep releasing content with a ton of Despair, Special Bind, and Burn, you know, he's probably going to be here, you know, because he's just super, super good to use. And then rounding out the bottom tier of the 16 to 20, so the number 16 position, is my favorite character that released last year, which is none other than Crossguild, wherever they are. They are here somewhere. Crossguild's a beast. I absolutely love Crossguild. This unit is just amazing, and as long as Slasher and Driven units are near the top, this guy's going to be there too, because his special ability is great, his captain ability is awesome. We made a video of him during the month as well, just kind of like revisiting him, using him as a captain. And yeah, Crossguild is just awesome. Absolutely love this unit. No complaints from me. He also removes a ton of Despair with his captain ability, and the special ability provides a ton of massive benefits. So yeah, Crossguild stays winning, man. So let's move on to the next tier, which is the 11 to 15. So the first one on my list is going to be a character that was also around this same level last month, which was Toki. Toki is still an awesome character. Absolutely love this unit. Really dope design, access to amazing supports, by the way. If you haven't actually seen it, you should just straight up use this character in a team and just click on the supports that you can use on this unit. You'll be surprised. There's a lot of good units you can use on this guy, mainly because the fact that it counts as Toki, Momo, and Hiyori, so great value there. And then the special ability being incredibly unique, and only giving 2 units 3.5 buff is more than enough in a lot of cases, and being able to resist all debuffs completely on those 2 units is just god tier. This unit is phenomenal. Continues to be one of the best units in the game, one of the best support units you can have. Just phenomenal character. So no real surprise there. Moving on now, we're moving on to a character that came out late last year, was also a feature on this tier list last month. I just have to find the character, and that character is going to be Roger, Rayleigh, and Gaban. So this character is a bit of a unique one, but I do still think this character does hold some value. So the fact that he was the character that debuted the Captain Shift mechanic, he does have the ability to resist... is it bind or despair? Yeah, he reduces bind duration completely. Like, that already is a really nice effect, and of course you can use him as a sub, switch into captain, use his EX super, with all the crit stuff. Like, the crit stuff is kind of like whatever, but the special ability is honestly still pretty decent, all things considered. You get different abilities depending on if you use it as the captain or you use it as the sub, which is really cool too. The super special is kind of fine. The character is just very good, very solid overall. And it's not really the fact that, you know, Roger Gang, he's a pretty decent unit, but it's the fact that the characters that you will typically surround with him are also very good. What's his potential ability again? Yeah, it's a final tap, and it's not a great final tap, which is a little disappointing. I still don't understand to this day why we get such terrible final taps in Treasure Cruise. They're just so god-awful. But Roger Gang, I feel like, is still a very valid character to use in a ton of content. And as I said, captain switching is going to be, or the captain shift is going to be a pretty valid you know, gimmick to use in content moving forward, as you can manipulate your captains around, and because so many good captains are around these days, being able to manipulate which captain is available at which time is a pretty big deal. So I still really value what Roger Gain does. And the next one is going to be a character that we had on here last month, around this same level last month, if I can find them. And that character is going to be Dual Yamato. One of the hardest hitting, if not the hardest hitting unit in the game. We already pretty much know everything about this guy. Yamato's crazy, just ton of damage, great synergy with some of the best units in the game. I don't really think I need to talk about this unit too much. Captain ability removes bind as well, which is a nice thing to talk about. Switch ability is pretty decent, has a ton of like cooldown reduction and special reverse stuff, which is dope. Massive color affinity jump for slasher and striker units. And the character has legit one of the best final taps in the game in terms of amount of damage that it can actually provide. Of course, using the EX Super on top of it to get the damage reduction, and then launching this final tap. As I said, with all buffs considered, it is one of the hardest hitting final taps in the game. So do not disregard this character. Yamato is great. The only real downside to this unit is that, you know, the character's not good in Rumble. And I mean, this is not a Rumble tier list, but I wish this character was good in Rumble. It's just such a shame. So yeah, Yamato, still very good unit. Moving on now to our, what position is this? This is number 12. So number 12 on the list is going to be a character that has actually jumped down quite a fair bit considering where they were last month. And that's going to be Shanks versus Kid. Now, unfortunately, in the most latest Kizuna, I haven't 100% checked, but I'm pretty certain that this Shanks wasn't really used in this latest Kizuna. And you could say the same thing for like Zoro and Sanji, for example, but there are redeeming qualities to using Zoro and Sanji as like a filler unit compared to a character such as this. This doesn't ultimately mean that Shanks is a bad unit by any stretch, but the other characters that I have above them, I personally have just valued higher than what I valued this character at. So as I said, this character is not a bad unit. It's just, I feel like the other characters that are above them, I would prefer to use in more content over a character such as this. This character is basically kind of just built to be used in Kizuna Clash, and it's such a sad thing, but I really wish this character's versus ability was easier to hit, because it's very difficult to hit unless if you're in Kizuna Clash, for example. The character has pretty good kit overall. I mean, we're talking about the Shanks side, of course. I really like Kid's design as well, but Kid also has a big issue with the fact that the versus requirement is so bad. If this versus requirement was much easier to hit, this versus ability is just so phenomenal. Like, on paper, Kid is legit one of the best units in the game. The problem is that the versus ability is hard to hit, and is also shooter focused, and shooters are one of the weaker classes in the game. So it's such a shame, because this character, like, on paper just looks phenomenal in almost every single way, but it's just the fact that, you know, the characters that you would typically surround with him are just not as powerful, so I can't really rate him as high, unfortunately. Shanks obviously has a lot of value in Kizuna Clash, granting double stacking conditional boosts, granting weakness buff and stuff like that. He's still very good. I just think the other characters are a little stronger. Now, speaking of strong characters, the final character to round out this half of the tier list is going to be Strength Luffy from the New Year celebration. This is a big bump from where he was last month, but this guy, I mean, he is basically used in almost every new content that came out this month. No real surprise, because he's the New Year's unit. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as time progresses. Will this guy maintain his position? The thing is if you can synergize this Luffy and this Sabo, like this is what makes these characters so good. These two synergize so well together, it's absurd. You activate the EX Super of Sabo, which grants you 10 turns of end of turn healing. Then you activate Luffy, which not only grants 3 times conditional boost, 3 times increased damage taken against the opponent, but then also giving you the 3 times conditional boost. So being able to get a 3 times increased damage taken and then a 3 times conditional boost against that, like, that's god tier, dude. Like, the amount of damage you get from that is absurd. Also grants the territory, also grants the increased defense removal on the opponent, damage dealing special, which is obviously a positive. If you use him as a captain, you can trigger the super. Also granting a weakness buff, which further increases your damage by 1.69. So one character that can provide this, this, and this all with one character is crazy. Like, and speaking of this, a rainbow potentially 7 times captain. Obviously, this character is mainly damage focused, but if we're talking damage, like, this is like legit one of the craziest characters in the game. It's just unfortunate. I just feel like, you know, this character should be a little better. Like, the captain ability wise, I wish the captain ability was a bit better and a little bit easier to use. But I mean, if you get this built correctly, it is insane, some of the damage you can do with this character. Okay, so we're making our way to the top 10. Now, look, with this next character, a lot of people have said, oh, you always rate this character too highly, you shouldn't put this character that highly. This time, I really don't give a damn. I'm putting this character in the top 10. I think this character deserves to be in the top 10, and if you don't think that this character deserves to be there, then I feel like you're just wrong. This character is way too good not to be top 10 considered, and that's Legend Uta. Legend Uta, man, just consistently shows up as being one of the best units in the game. Whenever we get new striker focused stuff, new shooter focused stuff, new cerebral focused stuff, Uta consistently sees play. Like, if you don't pull the new unit and the character is striker, cerebral, shooter focused, using Uta as your own captain with the friend of that other new unit is just the way to go in a lot of circumstances. And I mean, that's all I really have to say about that. I mean, captain ability is just insane. I mean, of course, this is the 6-star version, but this is really talking about the quick or the int one. This captain ability is like way too good. Like, resisting special, reverse, and paralysis by 10 turns, like, that's one of the best utility captains in the game. Like, the damage is fine. Like, it could be stronger, of course, but it's fine. And then the turn progress activated effect, we all know how good it is, right? This character's so good. Like, there's really not much else to say. Uta's just one of my favorite legends in the game. They really did her justice. She's incredibly powerful. Speaking of very, very, very powerful units, the next character is going to be no real surprise. I feel like most people consider this to be one of the best legends in the game, and that's going to be Nami Karina. Obviously, in Rumble, we're not talking about Rumble, of course, but in Rumble, they are phenomenal. Nami Karina, consistently used basically every day. Everyone will use this to, like, basically complete their daily islands to get the additional dupe drop. Rainbow Captain, great switch ability, great special ability. Obviously, you got different components depending on which character you switch into. Characters used basically every single treasure map. Oh, the character's so good. Yeah, no real surprise that Nami Karina makes it onto this list. Moving on to what is this? That's 10, 9, so moving on to 8. So the next character I feel like is better in a lot of circumstances, which is Roger. I think a lot of people probably would consider this to be probably nearly top 5. Like, these two characters are consistently used. This Roger is just phenomenal. It's crazy. The 10th anniversary of Treasure Cruise, I feel like is kind of slept on still. Like, the 10th Annie brought out, like, all the units that came out for 10th Annie are, like, some of the best legends in the game, and, like, we're gonna be probably heading into the 11th anniversary, and they're still going to be probably the best units in the game. Who knows what happens during this year's anniversary coming up in May, but I mean, like, it's kind of hard to top what they did last year. Like, last year went, like, to a whole other level, and this Roger just consistently shows that. Of course, he's an EXP boosting captain. He gives berries, 10 turn special bind removal. He's a rainbow captain. Special ability, especially if you use it as a captain himself, being able to grant attack boost, color affinity, and orb boost that can't be removed, and then extending it with the EX super. So having all of those buffs for 3 turns, guaranteed tandem slot, and then orb barring it, and then you go attack down and defense removal. Like, this guy's a beast. And the one thing that everyone loves, the super tandem that's easily activatable with only one tap with one other unit, and a one-tap super tandem that provides 2.25 times damage is crazy, dude. Roger's so good. Like, legit one of the best legends in the game, hands down. No real surprise there with that one. That unit is so good. Next one is going to be Luffy versus Kaido. I had this character in a very similar position last month. I think a lot of people would probably consider this character to be in the top 5 discussion. I mean, Luffy versus Kaido is a phenomenal character. On both sides, really. Like, Luffy, super good on high damage content. You've got his versus ability that can inflict the increased damage taken through immunity, buffing attack buffs, Kaido buffing orb buffs, and we just talked about before how good Uta was with her captain ability. And then you've got Kaido that can also do the same thing, resist special reverse by 10 turns and paralysis by 10 turns. Of course, he is mono driven focused, which makes him a little more difficult to use, but the special ability of both of these characters are amazing. Both captain abilities are amazing. The versus abilities, not only are they very good, but they're very, very easily activatable. I suppose the only real downside is that Kaido's final tap is, like, actually garbage. Kaido's tandem, should I say, is straight up garbage, but Luffy's final tap is amazing, so that's a real positive for him. Both are very good in Rumble as well, so, like, yeah, there's really not much to argue here. This character is legit one of the best legends in the game. And then we're moving on to a character that I think I had in the top 5 last month, but I am probably bumping them down. I think I had him in the top 5 last month, and that's versus Blackbeard. Didn't really see much play this month, but I mean, like, versus Blackbeard is still such a good unit. And whenever we get striker support in the future, then like Law will be a really nice pickup as well. But yeah, Blackbeard kind of carries this unit because of his HP guard mechanic that's relatively easily to activate. And again, because we have so many gimmicks in modern content that do damage to you, like burn, super burn, bleed, what is it, the pain debuff, like there's a ton, right? And being able to have HP guard to negate that damage and also to make full use of his rush mechanic is really dope. So I like what Blackbeard does. He's just a really cool unit. I mean, a lot of the time you wouldn't run double Blackbeard. You usually run Blackbeard with like a different captain as one of the other ones, and you can build some really dope teams with that. And then his special is amazing too, like, you know, base attack boost, all that kind of good stuff. So Blackbeard's a really powerful legend. And now we make our way to the top 5. So moving on to my number 5 position is going to be Psy Gear 5 Luffy. So I think I bumped him down a little bit from last month. Psy Gear 5 Luffy, obviously talking about the 6-star and the 6-star plus combined. But in most uses, you're going to be using the 6-star version of Luffy, mainly just because the utility in the captain is just way better, being able to resist bind and special reverse by 10 turns. And then of course, transforming into Gear 5 to bypass defensive effects. That combination of abilities is unheard of and will continuously be used because it's just absolutely insane. And then of course you've got the base Luffy, which can revive because why not? Special ability is obviously very powerful, especially when you use it in Gear 5 states. You remove 1 turn of positive buffs. Very good against co-op quest. And then, you know, that's pretty much it. It's just a god tier Luffy, so no real surprise that he's going to make it onto this list. He will still be definitely a top 20, like at least a top 10. I mean, if you don't think he's at least a top 10, then I think you got rocks in your head, honestly. Like, Psy Gear 5 Luffy is still one of the best in the game. If you're starting off the game, you probably want to get this guy. He's gonna carry you pretty hard. All right, moving on. Next is going to be another Gear 5 Luffy, which is the Int version of Luffy. This guy is still amazing too. The cool thing about this guy, he's got great utility, a lot in his kit. He's got Despair removal in the captain. He's got Bind removal and Threshold removal in the special. He's got the full border Int slots. He's got massive damage increase. Captain ability is very strong, as we know. He's got the EX Super, which is also very good. And then it's a Luffy. He gets access to amazing support, so there's that. And then of course the Rush. That's one of the big things with all of these 10th anniversary legends, is that their Rush Sugo special is one of the reasons why they are characters that will consistently see play, because they're just kind of versatile. Because not only are all these 10th anniversary units, I mean, I guess we should just kind of pull them up now because they're all gonna be here. So I had Luffy as kind of like the weakest one. I had Shanks as the next best one, mainly just because we kind of see more play with you know, with Slasher and Cerebral units recently. And then I have Ace as the number 1 of those anniversary legends. But I mean, all 3 of these units, I mean, as I said before, these 10th anniversary units are just so insane. I guess that by this point, you guys already know who's number 1. There's no reason in hiding it. I still believe that Zoro and Sanji are still at this point the current best legend in the game, despite the fact that they didn't really see that much play this month. And this is kind of what I wanted to touch upon when I mentioned Shanks earlier. So even though in the most latest Kizuna Clash, where, you know, the Slasher team wasn't really the way to go, / Free Spirit team wasn't like the way to go, Zoro and Sanji was still kind of used on teams, mainly just because their super tandem was really good and they synergize well with, like, you know, having Luffy on the team, and you can have like another Straw Hat to build good teams around that. So Zoro and Sanji, even when they're not like the most optimal setup, they still have a super tandem you can abuse. They still got an amazing switch effect that you can use on like the mini boss to get through to that final stage. So I feel like that's kind of hard to replace in a lot of circumstances. So yeah, I feel like this is pretty clear cut. I still think most people believe Zoro Sanji's number 1. The 10th anniversary units, I love all of these units, but I just feel like Ace is the most usable of the 3, especially in short form content, in long form content. They're all just really good. Ace just speeds through content. Very unique special with him as well, being able to remove damage nullification by 3, and then paralysis by 10, captain ability that removes special reverse by 10 as well, and then shoot a free spirit deck captain. I mean, bro, that's so good. And then you got Shanks, of course, which is bind removal, and then the special that removes rainbow shield by 10, barrier by 3. So that's also really unique. So like him removing barrier by 3, him removing nullification by 3, very unique effects. Whereas like Luffy, he removes threshold and bind with his special, which is like still good, but like it's easily replaceable, easier to replace compared to removing 3 turns of barrier or 3 turns of nullification. You know what I mean? Even though those debuffs are more uncommon to remove, them having the ability in the first place is a big deal, right? But still, as I said, just because, like, you know, this guy's number 2, this guy's number 4, like, I don't think that, like, they're any, like, that much worse. Like, the gap between these units is very marginal. So don't get it twisted, right? But this is just my top 20 of legends currently in One Piece Treasure Cruise. We'll see how things go as we move into next month. When we get to the next month's tier list, which is going to be at the end of February, by that point we will have the global anniversary characters, or the worldwide anniversary, you know, characters in the game. I'm not 100% sure if they're going to even make a dent to this list. I sincerely hope that they do, but I wouldn't like think that it's going to happen. But hey, who knows? Crazier things have happened. That's going to wrap it up for me, though. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.